Mohammed Light, Riley, Ian77, LucasX Gamer, and Surgical Goblin. All these best Clash Royale players have bought a very special video for you all. The 20-win challenge is here, and I'm sure you're all looking for the best decks and tips to win it. And who better to learn from than all these pros? So I asked all these players for help. And they gave me some really valuable tips and the best decks to win the 20-win challenge. So get ready for this ultimate 20-win challenge guide by the best players of Clash Royale. Let's start with the 2024 Clash Royale World Champion Mohammed Light. He gives two of his most important tips to win the 20-win challenge. He says, abuse the best decks in the meta to increase the possibility of getting the 20 wins or at least a badge. This makes perfect sense because the meta decks are created by the best players in the world and are made to counter the most popular cards. Furthermore, Mohammed Light adds, don't be afraid to take a break after a loss. Playing with a bad mindset could affect your gameplay for the next match. This is another very important tip which many players neglect. It's really important to take a break when you're on the losing streak. Your gameplay is not at its best when you're losing constantly. You get frustrated and make bad decisions, which in turn makes you lose even more. So it's better to take a break so that you can come back again with a better mentality. According to Mohammed Light, the best deck to use in the 20-win challenge is the Splash Yard deck. This deck is really solid on defense. It has the potential to outplay any matchup. The evolved Goblin Cage serves as a great counter to the popular meta cards such as Mega Knight and P.E.K.K.A. And of course, the Goblin Stein's ability shreds anything in its path. Next up, we have the 2024 Clash Royale League runner-up, Riley. His number one tip for the 20-win challenge is play as much as you can. 20 wins for the first time is difficult, so you need as much experience as possible. This is a great tip for lesser experienced players. You need to be experienced in facing players of different skill levels if you want to complete the 20-win challenge. And what's the best way to do that? Just play more. But what if you're limited by time? Well, Riley answers that too. He says, if you have only limited time available, use the bulk of your time in the final 2 days of the 20-win challenge, because the longer the challenge goes on, the easier it gets. A lot of pro players complete the 20-win challenge within the first couple of days itself. Thus, it makes the challenge comparatively easier on the last 2 days because not many skilled players are left. Use this to your advantage and double down on your efforts in the last 2 days of the challenge. As for Riley's number one best deck for the 20-win challenge, it's none other than his main deck, Log Bait. He gives only 2 tips on how to play the deck. Princess the bridge and get to your evolved barrel as soon as possible. Sounds right! Up next, we have the 2-time back-to-back CRL monthly champion, LucasX Gamer. Lucas gave us 2 really important tips. First, he says, be fully focused every match, especially the first 10 matches because the opponents will be easy. Because if you drop a game before 10 wins, it's pretty unlikely you will manage to get 20 wins. This is really important to note because you don't want to give a loss in the first 10 matches to someone not as skilled as the players you might face later on. If you're 10-0, your chances of getting 20 wins gets much better because you have now 3 losses to give for 10 wins. But if you are 10-2, you have to win 10 matches in a row against the best players in the world, which is extremely difficult. So make sure to play with all your focus during the first 10 matches of the challenge. Another important thing Lucas mentioned is that you need to play a meta deck or at least adapt your deck to counter cards like Goblin Stein, Mega Knight and P.E.K.K.A. These cards are going to be really popular in the 20-win challenge, so you need to make sure that your deck has counters to these, else you're in for a rough time. His best deck for the 20-win challenge is this P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider Goblin Stein deck. This is a really popular deck right now considering how strong Goblin Stein and P.E.K.K.A. are. Ram Rider and Evolved Bomber be your main win conditions, while Tornado will be great on both offense and defense. Moving on, we got Ian77, who's one of the most respected pros and content creators in Clash Royale. He also gave us some really cool insights and the best deck for the 20-win challenge. He says, it's really important to control your nerves when you're at higher wins in the challenge. You may be nervous and your hands might start shaking, but you need to make make sure that your opponent is as nervous as you are. Stay calm and collected as much as possible. As someone who finds this tip relatable, I can't stress enough how important this is. You really need to be calm and in your zone when you're just a win away from the badge or 20 wins. Players tend to make a lot of mistakes when they're nervous, so just try to be composed and focus on your game without worrying about the stakes of the match. Another thing Ian mentions is to play decks which you're comfortable with. Of course, you can play meta decks, but it's also necessary to have some cards in there which you're familiar with. Try to find a balance between what's working in the meta and what works well for you. Makes perfect sense, right? Ian's best deck for the 20-win challenge is this Royal Hog's Earthquake Cycle. This is perhaps the best consistent deck recommended by every pro. It can beat any matchup if you play really well, even the hardest of counters. You will definitely see this deck a lot in the 20-win challenge. Lastly, we have the 2019 Clash Royale World Champion Surgical Goblin. Who can forget him winning the 20-win challenge using 2.0 minor cycle? Well, he says, it's really important to play in a room or space where no one is around you. This way, you can play with full focus, cause it's not good if you have people or stuff around you which are distracting. A lot of you would have lost the 20-win challenge in the previous years because of something which distracted you all of a sudden, and I'm sure you all raged about it. That's why it's important to play in a quiet space where your focus can be at its best and there won't be anyone to disturb you. Surgical Goblin shares this Mortar Minor decks as the best deck to complete the 20-win challenge. It's a really defensive deck which can overwhelm the opponent eventually. For doing so, your cannon cart and evolved mortars are the most important tools. Minor will be your asset for chip damage, which will eventually win you games. I'm sure you'll face many different types of decks during the 20-win challenge, and you will form some really unique opinions about some of them. So, if you want to know if your opinions about certain decks are correct, click on this video.